So I'm Greg Sowell, Special Solutions Architect. I work at Red Hat. And that title really just means I focus on one product, and mine happens to be Ansible. So I get to play more on kind of the technical side of things, less on the, hey, do you want to buy more whatevers today? So most of my time is spent just kind of helping people learn and educate and enable and all that good stuff. So today I'm here to talk about kind of some of the new stuff in 2.6. I'm assuming you've heard some of it because we've been beating you folks over the head with it as much as we possibly could. But there are a few quirks and caveats, and maybe I can show you some of the live stuff. Not all of it, honestly, because not all of it's working in my lab right now. But some of it is, so I can show you those pieces. So this can be as interactive as you want. Feel free to ask any questions. I don't mind that. I prefer to have conversations as opposed to me just lecturing you all. It's nice that I can actually see your faces. I'm accustomed to doing this stuff over Zoom, so it's just a lot of black squares. So it's kind of cool that you're locked in here with me. I'm not locked in here with you, for sure. So some of the new stuff, automation dashboard. Not sure how many folks this would apply to. It seems to be more interesting, I find, to kind of management and the C-level stuff like that. So before we had console.redhat.com where you could export all of your automation information out to it, right? You'd have kind of the insights where it would see how much automation you're performing and give you some kind of ROI calculator stuff on that. Well, now we have a very similar experience, only you can do that on-prem. We've had a lot of customers that either don't want to ship their data off. I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to send that off to somewhere else. Or they have compliance restrictions that don't allow them to do it. Well, now you have the ability to actually pull that information inside your local environment and essentially collect it. So as you can see here from these itty bitty screenshots, you really can't. Really, it lets you kind of pick any time frame that you want. You can go back to that time frame. You can create filters, save filters, stuff like that. Really, it's going to show you statistical information on, like down here at the bottom, how many successful jobs happened in that time frame, how many failed. You can click on it and it'll give you, direct access to your AAP instance with all that stuff in there. I guess it's kind of interesting to some folks. Maybe if you're trying to chase down common failures, that could potentially be something that would be interesting to you. To me, the more powerful piece of this is for every automation that runs, every job template that happens in there, you can fill in a little blank of how much human time it would take to perform this action. And essentially you can put in, this is how much I pay my engineers per minute. And so it'll do the calculation of, oh, this is how much time you save using automation, right? So if your team start automating, it gives you a direct way to show management, hey, this is how much we're saving the company, right? So it kind of helps justify your automation push, right? A lot of times it's hard to kind of quantify what you do. I've worked with some marketing people before in the past, and it seems like 90% of their job is just justifying their existence, and please don't fire me. And so this is kind of, I'm not saying you're going to get fired if you don't automate, but I'm saying this is a way to, I guess, very tangibly show, hey, these are the direct results. These are direct impacts of all the work we're putting into automating all this stuff. Cool thing is you can export this stuff out as a PDF. You can dump it all as like a CSV if you've got some other tool you want to plug it into or do whatever. So you can actually get at the raw data after you kind of filter it out to use it however you want, right? Anybody find that interesting? Raise a hand. I'm just curious. So I've picked out all the boring people in the room. I got it. Right. Nah, but it's...
I have a question here on this.
Yes, sir.
Measure the engineer time. Does it measure like the IT service management time? Like change approved or like if you have to plan a backup plan?
That's fascinating. I didn't think about that. I guess you could factor that into like, hey, this job template run takes, 45 minutes for human time. You could factor in the average approval time and those kind of things. I guess you could kind of bake it in there, but it doesn't have individual fields to fill that stuff. No, I could tell you that the reason I don't have access to our kind of back-end development one is because they're doing updates right now on it, literally right now in this time frame, which is terrific. So it became unavailable. But that's to go to say that we are directly taking feedback from customers out in the field, and they are constantly adding new features to this. So that could be something that somebody's interested in like, hey, can you break out some more fields so that when we export this information, we can kind of show those values as well. That could be something that we can put in request for enhancement and get it baked in.
Could you use an API interface into a service management tool and collect that data? So, and then incorporate it in the dashboard? Essentially, you wrote a playbook that would go get that data out of a service management tool. And because you can look at how long a change or how long you can get the timestamps. I'm not saying it would be effective, but it might be a way to get that you can pull it back and pull it in.
Gotcha. So Rael's asking, could you have it to where it reaches out to some other tools to grab some additional information, some enrichment to it? I know natively it's not baked into the tool. That doesn't mean you couldn't write some automation that would reach out and then pull all these individual pieces.
Okay.
So I think that's actually a really interesting use case. I'm gonna have to go back and look at this so I can maybe put something together for that, because that's actually, Rael's always the smart one in the room. Always gotta make me look stupid. Let's see, what else do we have in here? I know, I do a fine job on my own. The intelligent assistant. So have you guys tired of hearing about Lightspeed yet? Too bad, sucker. Because so we're just gonna Lightspeed everything else. It's kind of that exhibit meme. Yo, dog, we heard you like Lightspeed, so we're gonna put some Lightspeed in Lightspeed. Lightspeed is really just our code word for it's something that interfaces with AI, right? So it started out with Ansible Lightspeed, which was our coding assistant, using the Watson X stuff. I genuinely haven't had to tell anybody what code assistance is for 5 years. Like, you are all very familiar with that. We actually had to start calling it coding assistant because now Ansible Lightspeed is going to be a whole lot of different things. This one we're talking about intelligent assistant. So intelligent assistant is inside of AAP itself. It adds a little chat bubble over there. You can click it and it gives you access to an LLM. So you can start directly from AAP asking it questions about your infrastructure. Now, day one right now, if you were to be using intelligent assistant and you ask it questions, you can only ask it things like general information like, what is a job template? How do I create a job template? How do I add a job template? How do I upgrade AAP? Ask it things generally about it. Day two is going to be here very soon, which is going to give us the ability to have an MCP that can directly interface with all the data collected by AAP. So whenever you run a job, right, everything that's in the job listing, all of the output of all of your jobs, all of that's now going to be fodder for this LLM to be able to reach into. So you can say, hey, give me a report on generally how my automation's doing this week. Or you could say, hey, this job template seems to be failing for a few hosts. Do you have any idea why, right? So we can go in there and start kind of taking a look at that. Now, it will also have the ability, if you want, and this freaks a lot of people out, to say, hey, these 3 hosts that are failing, can you figure out why? Write a playbook and take care of it. And it can go and write a playbook with Code Assistant, put it into AAP, actually run that, and then evaluate the output and say, oh, it looks like these 3 hosts, they have full drives. So you probably want to take care of that, right? So you can let it kind of do that stuff. I know that doesn't fit into most people's change control procedures, but just so that you know, we are adding capabilities like that in there. That doesn't mean you have to activate them or utilize them in any way, but they are going to be there. I think even if you don't go that far, just the enrichment of, so for me, I have a development instance of AAP, and so I don't actually do a lot of command line development. I usually go straight from VS Code, push it into Git, and then just fire it in my AAP instance. It's an old joke, but it's, everybody has a development instance, not everybody has a production instance, right? They're not always separated out. Most of my customers actually seem to. In my case, in my lab, I do it all in one place. But from there, if I did have Intelligent Assistant able to look at all this stuff, it would make my troubleshooting a lot easier because I actually do my development there. So I could say, hey, this job template is absolutely failing, figure out why, right? And so right there, it can diagnose it and maybe even make some suggestions. I'll make the changes, rerun, Bob's your uncle, right? So it could help you get to resolution a little bit quicker. So I'm excited for the analytics piece, just saying, hey, what's going on here? What's going on there? Maybe generate some XYZ for me. Even if I'm not going to have it run all that stuff, I like the idea of it being able to kind of intelligently put all that stuff together. I don't know about you, but in my experience, handing LLM a whole bunch of information and saying, do something with this has been so much more successful than saying, invent a thing for me. Is that pretty much everybody else's? Yeah, pretty much everybody's consensus. Self-service automation portal. This has been one that people have been asking me since I started working at Red Hat in 2020. Hey, do we have a simple interface where we can have people just log into that and run automation? I don't necessarily want them to log into AAP. Can we just have some kind of little something off to the side? And we finally actually have a product that meets those needs. I think a lot of people are doing something like an ITSM, like ServiceNow. Probably a lot of you are doing that kind of thing, where you're able to log in and do all that stuff, and it's got really good change control procedures. You have to have, you do a submit, somebody else has to come in and approve, like go to approval system, like all that's baked in. But if you don't have that, gives you something like that. Even if you do have that and you have a small side project, this might be able to be something that can pop in and help you with that. And so this one I actually do have up and moving here. Whenever you log in, as the user that you log in as, it's only showing you things you have access to in AAP. So if I have execute permissions on a job template, that'll pop up in here. You can see all these little pre-populated ones here. If I have access to certain inventories, those are going to pop up as well, right? They'll be available in my automations. If I don't have access to that stuff over there, it's not going to show up here. So the RBAC that you're already accustomed to is how you're going to delegate permissions inside of this. Now, most of these are automatically generated based on surveys, right? So you can have a job template, you can create a survey on there with a whole bunch of like prompt information, like fill in the blank sort of stuff. And if you have a survey with one of these, it'll automatically ingest that. And I can say launch here. You can see it pulls up some options here. The survey only has one option, and it's like, what do you want to name this rel 10 server you're going to provision? You see there are two other entries here, one for inventory as well as credential. These weren't actually in the survey. What they did is in that job template, they hit the prompt on launch checkbox. So if you have that, it'll pop up here and it will dynamically pull everything you have access to, say inventory wise, and it'll make it available for you in this combo box, right? Same thing with credential. If you prompt on launch, it'll just look, what credentials does this joker have access to, and it'll make those available. So in our online marketing stuff, it says we have dynamic capabilities in here. And I've had a bunch of people say, oh, wicked, I can have it reach out to all these systems and gather all this stuff. That's not there yet. So whenever they say dynamic, this is what they're referring to. If you hit prompt on launch on some of this stuff, it'll look what inventories, right? What credentials, what things do you already have access to in AAP, and I'll make that available to you here. So that's the dynamic nature. I have been talking to engineering about, hey, can we, before, or I guess whenever you launch one of these service items, can it stop and run a different playbook, gather a whole bunch of info, and make it available? Something like, hey, can you connect to the core switch and pull all the VLANs and put that in a combo list, right? Like have this stuff dynamic, whatever it happens to be. Maybe connect into an inventory in an interesting way and pull certain hosts out or something like that, right? Can we actually reach out to an external system? That's something, again, request for enhancement. The more you guys ask for that kind of thing, the quicker we're going to integrate it in. And so I know we're constantly adding new stuff in.
Or just have a survey that based on if you pick A or B, the next question is based on whether you selected A or B.
Yes.
Because that's so frustrating that, it's like, well, do you want to build it, AWS, or do you want to build it on site? Well, okay, you want to build it in AWS. Which area of AWS do you want it to build in? And you can't have that survey question unless it knows that you're in AWS.
Mm-hmm. Can I get an amen from the congregation? Yeah, it's a absolutely good one, and we're working towards that. They're baking in logic in here, so you're going to be able to do some conditional logic in this, and they have the first beginnings of that. If you take a look at like to do this job template right here, launch. A lot of emoji use in here, which it's okay if you like that. But if you look right here, we have a radio button, right? You click the radio button, it actually expands and gives you more options. So they're doing small things like that, but they are adding in additional logic to where just exactly what you're talking about. You know, if you choose this path, you know, present with these options, maybe make sure this certain criteria is met. So, for example, this one right here, this job template that it's referencing doesn't have a survey. It doesn't have any prompt on launch. So you can do it that way, survey, prompt on launch, and it'll dynamically pull that. Or in the case of this one, we give you the ability to create YAML files that define what you want these forms to look like, and it will dynamically build them. And it gives you the ability to do some additional processing that you can't from the kind of survey method, where like right here, it's doing a regex pattern match on the input that the user gives, right? So they're starting to slowly integrate this stuff. The logic piece, like if then else kind of thing, comparators, that's not necessarily there yet. It's going to be there. I'm told soon. What does soon mean? Your guess is my crystal ball is still a little fuzzy on that, but hopefully we'll see some more interesting things very soon on that.
Will this run workflow templates? Because you could basically bubblegum and shoestring that together with workflow templates. So if you take a workflow template off that's already that they have access to, you can fundamentally grab a playbook that would grab that data and then feed it into the next one.
Gotcha. I don't believe you can run workflows directly from this, because I don't think you can put a survey on a workflow. Now, if you wanted to do it in the YAML definition format like this right here, I think you probably could go ahead and call it, because you're essentially defining this, and at the end of it, you're saying, grab all this variabilized information and call this job template with it. Really, all this self-service portal doing is just calling the API on the back end, right? Just gathering information and just shoving it over to the API. So I bet you could in that fashion. But there's not a way for us to run something in advance, gather information, and then have it present, like when the user clicks, have it do all of that into one cohesive kind of workflow. You could theoretically have them click something that would generate and build all that stuff, but then they would have to, you know, click another one to launch it. We don't have that capability baked in yet. That's something I would definitely love to see, and hopefully we'll have soon-ish. I can't put a date on that. Hopefully it'll be something we can all see relatively soon. I think it's neat though. It's going to make demoing really easy for me as well, I think. Just have, like, click this, show that. Blah, blah, blah. It also gives kind of some limited output whenever you run stuff. So like show logs right here. You can see it's a very succinct version of what a user would typically see, right? You're not getting a high level of detail on the output, because again, this is made for anybody inside your infrastructure, or rather inside your company. Or, I mean, I guess you can make it available to customers. It seems a little hairy in that respect, but anybody you want to run it, they could be subject matter expert, maybe like your networking people or your security people that don't necessarily need to understand the underpinnings. Have them do that, get some kind of succinct output of what's going on there. Let's see what else we got in here. Platform experience. There's obviously, when you go from any version like 2.5 to 2.6, you're going to get some minor improvements here or there. Luckily, anybody who's gone from 2.4 to 2.5 has understood that that is a pretty big engineering change on the back end, whereas 2.5 to 2.6, very little change. From my understanding, we're not going to have any big shifts like we did 2.4 to 2.5 in the foreseeable future. So once you get over that hurdle, it should be pretty easy. So EDA is getting a little bit of additional support. We're adding some, I mean, it's constantly going to be getting, you know, extra connectors for Kafka, various things like that, rulebook enhancements. I know now in 2.6, whenever you run something from EDA, the job templates in controller get a little tag that show you that it came from EDA, right? Just so you can kind of more quickly see that it's not earth-shattering, but right, continual improvement. What else? Unified interface. We're going to continue adding all these little additional components that we create into that unified interface, even if they're not all there just yet. New certified collections. I mean, obviously, we're going to keep building that stuff. I think one to keep an eye on is HashiCorp. A lot of folks use HashiCorp and Ansible. Since IBM's acquisition, we have just been strengthening our connection in between the two. So we have some new collections with a lot of new optimizations baked in. So if you're using Hashi, I think whether it's command line or you're using their cloud, it's going to have some additional functionality that could make your life a little bit easier there. Upgrading. So this is another big one that we got with 2.6. So again, anybody who's gone through the pain of going from 2.4 to 2.5, maybe if you'd waited a little while, it would have been a little bit easier, because 2.4 to 2.6 is going to be so much simpler. Again, you brave soldiers, we took a lot of feedback from you, learned a lot of hard lessons, and we have eased that migration. So our officially recommended migration path from 2.4 is to go straight to 2.6 now. So we added a gateway component, and 2.4, a lot of those things didn't automatically map over to the 2.5 pieces, whereas now we're using controller in 2.4 as the source of truth, and it really is populating almost everything inside of gateway, like all of your IAM pieces, all of the hard parts. Sorry guys, I know. Yeah, you definitely earned your war wounds over there. But we also support, we have upgrade and we have migration. Upgrade means you're going from like a like system to a like system. So you're like on RHEL 9 and you're going to a different version and you're still on RHEL 9, right? Like that's kind of an upgrade. Migration is where you're going from like RPM over to container based, right? So it's a little bit more work in there, but we support virtually anything on 2.4, RPM, container, OpenShift, or not container. Or yeah, really anything that's 2.4 available is going to move to anything 2.6 available. For anybody on RPM based is available on 2.6, but we're pushing out that, hey, we're not going to do a 2.7 RPM based. I want to say we said the same thing for 2.6. I'm not saying that you should take any chances, but you have a lot of time, a lot of ramp, a lot of runway to do that migration over to container-based. I gotta say, I really like the container-based version. It is like so easy to build up and tear down labs really fast. I've heard from the field, people are enjoying the container-based as well. So if you don't want to go full OpenShift, I feel like it's a good path if you want to give it a swing. And definitely let me know your feedback if you think it's garbage. I want to hear about it. Or if you hit any problems. Interactive experiences, if you want to see any of this stuff move, we have what we call arcades, and you can log in and it's kind of like wizard click through that'll show you the different products and features. We just put out a new version of Automation Dashboard that has some new features, so this may not even show all the new cool stuff that's in there, but it'll at least give you an idea how those components move and how we expect people to utilize them. Next steps, blah, 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 other stuff. Any questions about any of this stuff? Nah, pretty straightforward. Yes, sir.
I'm playing with the installer on 2.6 and on containerized and just a dab. Certificate questions, can you dive into that?
Yeah. As I can tell everybody, I may not have all the answers, but I will get them for you if I don't have them immediately.
I'm
All right. See how I kind of wiggled out of that one? Yeah. No, happy to help it anyway. Yeah, just grab me at any point. Happy to. Excellent. That's what we want to hear. Definitely. And they revamped the installer for the container one. I got to tell you, the RPM one, there's components in there that are like 11 years old. But the container-based one, all brand new. That's all great. All right. No more questions? We're good? All right, excellent. Thank you, everybody. Huh.